Welcome to Trapping Inc. Scuttlebutt Podcast. I'm Rich.
I'm Sandi, and we're up here in northwestern Alberta with a friend of ours, and we're going to talk a little bit about some heritage type of trapping.
Not only that, but a very fabulous and special ability he has. But first off, I want to mention that you can check out everything that we do on Trapping Inc. off of our website. That's at www.trappinginc.com. You can reach our podcast there. You can reach our YouTube there. You can reach our Amazon Prime feed there. You can reach
and our
Facebook.
Facebook.
Yeah. Anyway, go there, trappinginc.com, and get connected with us and our crew. Justin, welcome, sir.
Good day, sir. good to see you, Sandi.
And you. Thanks very much for hosting us.
So, loyal viewers of the show will remember you and your wonderful family from the very first year of Trapping Inc. We came up here and we went out to your trap line. It was, I can't tell you how much feedback we got. One, so many people were so pleased to see a family with young kids showing the way to the next generation. And I know for Sandi and I went home and I talked with her about it. I said, it was so good to feel so validated that here was somebody else who thought it was the right way to raise their children as well. And I loved the skinning. Your one son and your daughter skinning weasels for us at the end. It was fabulous. It was so nice to be out with a family where this was such a normal part of their life, where it wasn't a very special for. So many of our viewers and that trapping might be a 3-day season for the whole year, but if you ask them what they are, they identify as trappers.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So, give us a little bit of history here about how did you get into trapping?
Well, I was introduced to it at a pretty young age too, through my grandparents. My grandpa was a fur trapper most of his life. He sort of learned the hard way, I guess you could say it. Started young, a lot of cold days. They didn't have the gear like we had, so he was a tough guy. I looked up to him as a mentor. I spent countless hours with him in the bush. Loved every minute of it, and I guess it instilled something into me that I look back and love every minute of it too. So that's how I got introduced to trapping. I've definitely live my life around it. I enjoy it, and as you said before, like I look at it as we need to pass it down to our children, to the youth, so we can have this for the future. It's part of life.
Well, I just want to wander off into one little tangent here. I know, I promised you I wasn't going to, but I lied. You talk about didn't have the heater that you have. That was one of the things, that when we've talked to like pioneers from the trapping industry and all that, and you talk about the cold, and they agree, that today with our heaters that's much better, and that the cold isn't as bad. But it's not for the reason that we think of. It was hard for them to evenly dry their fur back then, and that's what it was all about. I mean, these were guys with the bark on. I mean, when they wore out clothes, they wore them out from the inside out. Yeah. They were so tough, and they didn't really care the fact that they were living in an open lean-to for the winter in the snow and that, but it was hard to get their fur dry.
Yeah, a lot of long nights turning fur, keeping the fire going, eh?
Yeah. Well,
Not
your grandparents started here how many years ago?
Back in the 30s. So my grandparents, I guess, come from Ukraine, settled here, and then had some unfortunate things happen, and my grandpa was about 15, 16, and ended up having to go to the bush to live and to survive, and trapping was the way.
Yeah. There was a lot of money in fur back then.
Yeah. Well, it was things were happening in the world. They were looking at our fur as the best in the world. So to go out and actually have a job, create money from the bush, they bought supplies. They didn't buy toys. They bought supplies, eh?
I find it fascinating. You talked about back then squirrel was very valuable, and I believe it was your grandpa and his brothers.
Grandma was part of it too, but Grandpa and one brother and Grandma caught 3,600 squirrels one winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was, put food on the table and bought a vehicle and stuff back in them days too. So,
Yeah. And I believe was it your grandpa or is one of his brothers that could skin squirrels while skiing to the next
Grandpa.
place? Yeah.
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 Yeah, they had snare poles and stuff, and as they were skiing, they had the little 22 shorts. I still have his original gun, and they could ski along. Hear a squirrel in the trees, ski over to it, get it, carry on skiing and skiing as they're going. Go to the next one.
There was a lot of those pioneers that traveled through the bush on skis.
Yep.
Not, a lot of people think that snowshoes were the way to travel, but the skis were a lot faster for them.
And easier on their bodies.
Yeah.
You walk in snowshoes all day. It takes a pretty tough man. Skis, you get good at it, and they could cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he could ski and skin squirrels. There's maybe some genetic thing here with his abilities.
Well, I will say too, we used to have a winter carnival in our town, and my grandma still holds the record for producing the squirrel the fastest. She could skin a squirrel, and what they call boarding it. So all she had to do was slide it on the board and call time, and she was 45 seconds flat.
Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
so
So speed skinning runs in your family.
I guess so.
I haven't even thought about what knife I'm going to use in 45 seconds.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I guess Grandpa taught me the bush for sure, and how to read animals and what they're going to do and how to catch them. But Grandma also, she was a fur handler. She taught me, she got me started. Like I was probably 7, 8 years old, and I was skinning beaver tails. That's the first thing I ever skinned in my life was a beaver tail.
Really?
Yeah, and just she wanted me to learn how to hold that knife and how to hold the hard side of the tail down into the flesh side and learn how to make your cuts.
It takes talent. I mean, it's not easy to skin a beaver tail.
Well, and as a kid, I guess maybe she was pushing me to see if I was determined enough to stick with it too. Most kids, 2 swipes and they're gone. Me, I skinned the whole pail of tails. Just sat there and did it and enjoyed it and stuck to it.
I think that's one of the best things about kids and trapping right now too. I mean, one of the very first ones, rendezvous that we went to, there was kids running around with knives, all and where else do you see that but at a trapper's rendezvous, and their parents expect them to be good with it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we teach our kids at a young age. It's no different, with rifles or guns and stuff too. This is a weapon. It's no different than a knife. A knife can kill you just as fast as a bullet can. So
absolutely.
And tools can hurt you too. Just ask Richard about that. He knows how tools can hurt.
Yeah, they hurt. Hammers hurt. Yeah.
No,
rubbing his knee.
She's poking me in the eye because I shot myself in the knee with a spiker here a few years ago.
Yeah, I got my hand too. So yeah, we were part of the club.
Yeah, at least we were. Your hand wasn't nailed to my knee, but that would have been an even better story, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So, your grandpa started or established this trap line in the 30s. So back then, was there, like all of Alberta is broke into registered trap lines today? Was it back then?
Yes. Yeah. So they were a lot smaller back in them days. The trap line, the original trap line that I have to this day, that's been in our family since the 30s, is about 4.5 townships. So back in, I would say the 70s, 80s, they merged a couple of them together. So it's got bigger over the years. The government actually has put a couple more to it.
Yeah.
So it is 4.5 townships, the original one now, which when Grandpa would have trapped it, it might have been a township.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did it produce a lot of fur back then? Like, I mean, how much have fur numbers changed?
Well, we didn't have Marten. Like Grandpa and Grandma talked, in the 80s is when they caught the fur. Grandpa didn't even know what a Marten was at that time.
Isn't it amazing? And yet there were so many squirrels there.
Yep.
They take thousands and thousands of squirrels, and everybody believes that that's what Marten eat. They really don't.
Yeah.
But isn't that amazing?
Yeah, they did good on link. A lot of squirrels, as you said, and fox back in them days. Fox is a big thing, bush fox. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you catch much for fox there now?
No, not deep in the bush. It's mostly farmland where I'm catching the fox, and I don't, I catch them in my footholds for coyotes. So I don't strictly target fox. We don't
Yeah.
have enough to just say I'm going fox trapping and that's
No.
what I want to come home with. So on an average year, I might pull 10 to 12 fox. Yeah.
Yeah, we get less than that up in the big bush.
We have
We-
no farmland
No.
on ours at all.
and we hardly have coyotes.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you do get a coyote on a wolf bait, the wolves eat it.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, that's their idea.
That's the coy wolf.
Yeah, that's the coy wolf. It's this pile of hair laying there.
Yeah.
That's the coy wolf out on the trap line. Where we end up getting fox is occasionally we'll get them in a trail set for a blind set snare for a lynx,
Yeah.
or sometimes you'll have you'll throw a 330 in beside with bait in it in beside a lynx set or whatever, because sometimes you're having problems with fisher and that kind of stuff, and then sometimes you get a fox snare. But not very often. We only get a couple a year.
Yeah. No, same up here. We're not a fox producing area, that's for sure. I love seeing them. It's one of my most enjoyment thing I think in my life is sit and watch a fox hunt. Like how they hear that mouse down in that snow and they can sit there for a minute with their head moving and all of a sudden up they go and straight in. I don't know what it is. It gets me every time, eh?
It's amazing. Another thing that's like that. Have you ever watched the great gray owl mouse?
I can't say I have. No.
Same thing. They sit up in a tree and they listen and listen and listen. All of a sudden they go out and they can actually hover to a dead stop, and then they dive into the snow.
Okay.
And they'll come up with a mouse. We were watching. I was sitting there. I was editing in my office. My office window looks out, and I watched him do it once, and I was like, realized what had went on. And so I called her, and we watched him dive 8 more times. He got 7 for 8.
Wow.
And it's all fluffy white stone. She says, "How does he know they're there?" I said, "He hears them." She thought I was pulling. See, I fooled her once about this jackalope thing in South Dakota. and
Ever
that
since
was,
then, I've been very suspicious of anything.
30 years ago, we're still trying to develop trust over
That's
this
right,
again,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
but yeah, they actually hear them.
Yeah.
They hear them. What's even better, though, is, I mean, he would be sitting in a tree, and he might, that mouse might be 30 yards away where he'll go out and hover and drop in, but he could hear them at that distance. Isn't that amazing?
Crazy. Yeah, it's incredible. Well, nature's way.
Nature is absolutely amazing.
It is.
Your trap line is on a pretty major river. Which the river?
So it's the Clear River through. I have 2 trap lines, 2 registered trap lines. So the original one, the Clear River, runs through it, which runs into the Peace River, and Peace River is pretty, I guess, known in North America somewhat. It's a big body of water moving through. So I have another trap line that actually is on the banks of the Peace River. Yep.
And yours, I was amazed when I was there, was you have a lot of spruce and pine forest. Mostly spruce, right?
Yeah.
Mostly spruce.
Yep.
And I could not believe the blowdown you got on that.
Yeah, it's taught me how to sharpen a chainsaw to get through. It's a lot of bushwhacking and stuff. So
I teased Sandi when I come home. I says, "You know how I take extra gas and the file along to sharpen a chain?" I said, "He takes an extra chainsaw and an extra chain."
yeah, there's days. Yeah, I've come home where I've never even on an average I'll run, say 80 to 100 kilometer loops, and I've turned back. I've just you're too tired to keep going, and you got 30 kilometers to go, and it's dark already, and as you guys have shown in your shows, we do a lot of night trapping because we only have so many hours in the day in the winter, and after you've worked from long before sun up till sundown chainsawing and checking traps and setting traps, and I don't tap out too many times, but I have turned back a few times. Yeah.
There's sometimes you're just so exhausted and you don't realize it until I'll be going along and I'll just start yawning, and then I'll be I'm driving a machine and I'll be like nodding off, and I realize, man, you've pushed it a little too close to the edge here.
Yeah, been there. Yeah, and you got to remember too, we're out in the bush far enough that stuff happens. You break a snow machine down. Well, I always carry gear to spend the night if I have to, but put yourself in a situation where you can get yourself in trouble really fast. So
We were just talking about that last weekend when we did our podcast out of the cabin. It's just some of the silly things that can happen to you out there.
Yep.
And people have a romantic vision of trapping, right? But it's not terribly romantic if you're
No.
stuck out in the bush.
Yeah.
We called the podcast, "If you're going to be stupid, you better be tough."
Yeah, I've been called that a few times, maybe. Yeah.
But that's a very important thing, though. I mean, when you need a reserve. If something goes wrong, you run into a tree or you break a machine or whatever, you need that reserve to pull your fat out of the fire.
Yep.
And if you've run it so far down, you ain't got it.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. Hypothermia sets in. Things like that. It can get you pretty fast. I'm not a big fan of these dramatic shows or whatever about the bush and stuff. But stuff does happen. Yep. It can happen.
You don't need to invent stuff because it just happens.
Yeah.
But you're prepared, like you said. You take stuff that you're prepared to. If you've got to spend a night in a lean-to or whatever, you probably have a can of Spam underneath your.
May or may not. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we're big fans of Spam.
Yeah.
I got a couple cans. There's a can in each machine that rides with me. At the end of the year, I have a celebration, and I eat the emergency ration of Spam. And it's no worse for having been heated up and cooled off underneath the seat of a Skidoo for a winter, but it's still quite edible.
It's provisions.
Toughens you up. Yeah.
You see what he thinks of Spam, huh? Toughens you up.
Well, we had people, what did you find? A 3-pack of Spam at Costco.
Yeah.
And so then that just created some conversation on Facebook. So then we asked people for their recipes, and
Yeah.
there are some creative Spam recipes out there.
Yeah, like I would never go to that kind of effort. Like to me, Spam is if you manage to open the can and stick it on a stick and heat it up. That's a recipe.
Yep.
I don't know. These people are chopping stuff up and mixing it, and for better flavor, a little bit of blackberry balsamic vinegar, and it's like, what?
So 90% of my lunches on the trap line, I'm usually snowmobiling down the trail eating a sandwich, which is probably 3/4 froze.
Yeah.
And all I can taste is beaver meat anyways, because it's all over my hands. It's what I trap with for when I'm out doing most of my trapping in the winter.
I'm familiar
so.
with that.
Yeah.
Richard likes it when I come along, though, because I can make a sandwich inside the Argo for him, and it doesn't taste like skunk essence or beaver meat.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
You get immune to it. I guess we look at the animals; they live on it every day. So why can't we?
Well, we joke because she'll be like, "Oh my God, it stinks." I don't smell it. Well, you've got nose blind, just like a commercial on TV.
Febreze.
I don't think Febreze is that good. I think I actually have lost senses, but
Well, I look at it when something is that good. It's like a fine wine. I know I make some pretty rank wolf lures and stuff, baits, and when it sticks to your clothes and you come home and you haven't touched it in like 2 hours, and your wife says, "My God, what is on you?" You know you got the right recipe, eh? So.
And the shower is right there.
Yeah, it's like fine wine. It gets better as it ages.
it's so funny though. I mean, you talk about beaver because earthworms. The scent of earthworms is recognized by every fish in the world as food. Okay? I think beaver lands there for every carnivore.
Oh, yeah. You can put it on the ground and you could have different meat, and guaranteed a dog will eat that beaver meat first.
Oh,
Unplugged.
we're okay now.
Okay.
I'm getting having too much fun here. So we're talking about a little bit about cycles, and it was in the 80s before Marten ever showed up.
Yep.
What else has changed as far as the amount of fur or populations that out on the line for you guys?
And what species?
Well, lynx for sure. There's years when I was younger, Grandpa was catching a pile of lynx on the line. I've never had the run yet. Like, I think we're coming into a cycle, I'm hoping here in the next few years, of a lynx run. I got neighboring trappers to the north of me that are actually doing quite well with numbers of lynx. So, hopefully they come down into the areas where I'm trapping too, and I can grab a few of them. Marten, definitely, we're on an average, I'm shooting for that 60 to 80 Marten a year. So, I've managed my trap lines to the point where I know I'm comfortable killing that many Marten every year. And when I do see a fluctuation, say I'm starting to catch some adult females towards the end of season, hey, I know enough to yank my traps. Leave them for next year.
So what about the other fur then? The mink, the otter.
Seeing more otter, to be honest with you. I've got a few otter in the last few years. Grandpa went his whole trapping career, probably 60 years, and never caught an otter in our area. So we're seeing more otter show up. Mink, not a lot of mink in our area as it is. Beavers, ups and downs like Grandma and Grandpa. I grew up on the Eureka River. My grandparents lived about a half a mile from us, where I was born and raised. And Grandpa and Grandma trapped that Eureka River my whole life, and that's where I started trapping beaver. So I was pretty fortunate when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. Grandpa would come through with his Argo, pick me up. We'd go beaver trapping for the morning, and that's one of the places it all started. This madness, I guess. And so they could easily, out of that little creek, in the high water, you could swim across it, but right now it's dry, so it goes to tell you what type of a creek it is.
Right.
In the fall time, it's dried up, but they'd pull 100 plus beaver out of that creek within a couple, probably a 10, 15 mile strip
Wow.
down that. So, and do it every year. So, the beaver numbers, I think, have sort of fluctuated some. I'm starting, definitely the price ain't there for going after the pelt for the beaver, so I don't pursue them a whole bunch. I do. I shoot for that 50 to 60 type of thing a year, but I use
That's a lot of work.
Oh, it is, and I use a lot for bait. That's probably my
Yeah.
go-to thing.
Yeah.
I need it for the bait. So, yeah. Other than that, like most animals, coyotes, we're seeing more coyotes. Grandpa was a snare man. He wasn't a footholder. I never ever did see him take a canine in a foothold, so he was pretty much 100% a snare man, and took a lot of wolves and a lot of coyotes over the years with cable.
So what has happened then as far as coyote and wolf population?
Like about 10 years ago, we were in a high cycle of wolves. I guess maybe we had a big push of mule deer in our country. I think the food was there. The wolves, yeah, they started multiplying, and we were to the point where they were actually a problem, with the moose and the wildlife, deer, and then into cattle and stuff too. So, coyotes, they fluctuate. Same thing. You never get rid of them all. You can trap your heart out, and you're never going to kill every coyote. So no matter what. But I'm in the last couple of years, I've really sort of struck out to learn this art of footholding, and lots of you can say growing pains, ups and downs, highs and lows. But we deal with such crazy weather too, to the point of last year I went out, was planning to dig in 6 dozen traps, had the holes, everything sort of pre-prepped. Woke up 4 in the morning to head out to start setting traps, and there was a foot of wet snow.
Yeah.
Game over. It just, yeah.
So what are the biggest lessons you've learned? Now, when you're footholding, that's specifically for coyote and wolf?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's the biggest lessons you've learned?
Well, I guess there's not a lot of instructors around here, or people that did it, so I've learned a lot, you can say the hard way, read a lot of books, watched videos. Probably the biggest thing that has set me, I wouldn't say to the next level, but opened my eyes a lot. I actually went down last summer to Craig O'Gorman's and took his school down there with him for 2 days. And, I learned a lot in 2 days of what people, everybody thinks, you need, hazmat suits and this and that, yada, yada, to just get so extreme to set that trap. And I went with a guy that's caught 40,000 animals in his life plus, and it's just very simple is what it is. Keep it simple.
Right.
Right. And I come home, and that's what I've went with. I've stuck with it. I've learned a lot, and I'm producing some pretty good numbers now in footholds.
Right. I've found that it's not so much that whether you're in a hazmat suit or that kind of thing. It's whether you're making it simple for the animal to step in your trap.
Yep.
You know, when you try and force them into an unnatural situation, it just doesn't work for them.
Yep.
But if they can wander up there and go to lift their leg on that coyote or on that cow skull or whatever, or boom, it happens.
Yep.
It's more about being natural, and once you have that flow,
Yep.
it works out so much better.
And location, like you can have 200 traps if they're set in the wrong spots. Yeah, you might catch an animal or two. Like I put a lot of time and effort into my traps. I got, short little story. I got a buddy that went down to the trap supply store, bought a number 3 soft catch four spring, set it beside a dead horse. The next morning, woke up, he had a wolf standing in it. Called me just ecstatic. Got this wolf. This is the easiest thing in the world. And I'm shaking my head like, I got 50 wolf traps and I have a hard time catching one, at that time. So, but same thing I look at it too is be consistent,
I get the same things. People send me a picture. I set a 330 last night in a milk crate. Look at the wolverine I caught. I was like, oh God.
Yeah. I've rode for 15 years, 200 kilometers a loop and haven't caught one. Yeah. Nature of the beast.
Do you have a favorite trap when it comes to footholding?
I was introduced by Craig down there to, so it's no BS lures traps made out of the States anyways. And so I'm learning. I was running MB550s, number 3 bridgers, all sorts of things, just trying to get a hold on what I wanted to do. Anyways, he'd showed me this trap and he said he's waited 40 years for this trap.
Is that the one, the Extreme?
Yeah. You bet. Canine Extreme. Yeah. Anyway, so I bought 6 dozen from him down there when I was in the States, brought them home and started using them and I'm up to 6 wolves in that Canine Extreme. Just the smaller trap. Like
No kidding.
Yeah. Held them no problem at all.
No kidding. They're an offset, are they?
Yep. Offset laminate, base swivel. They have all the specs we need for Canada. And just a rock solid trap. I've held a 100-pound wolf, the white one that's leaned against Sandi here. He was 100 pounds on the hoof, and he took that drag 300 yards and set it finally into the bush, and he was standing there waiting for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not killed him, put the trap back in the original bed. Never torqued it. Never did a thing to that trap. They were just
and people, a lot of people talk about, well, any trap will hold them. That's not true. Especially that base plate and how the swivel is hooked up on it is so critical.
Yep.
You take when I was up with Robert Grandjam up in the territories. I don't know if you saw the show or not, but he had caught a lynx in a offset number 3 Bridger Canadian, right?
Yep.
And the wolves decided to eat this lynx while they played tug of war with him and all that. The base plate on that number 3 was bent in a loop like this, like the jaws were just floppy, and I don't know whether you could even rehab that thing enough. Now, you imagine if that was a wolf in there. You're not going to hold him.
No, he's going to torque that trap hard enough that the jaws are going to come loose,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm damn impressed with these traps. I got to know Kendall a little bit, talked to him, and he made some wolf traps. So I said, well, I want to get in, like I need them. I'm trapping wolves, so I need some good solid traps. So he sent me a dozen of what he was working with, laminated offset, and just a big, solid, sturdy trap. So I ended up getting another. I got 50 of them running now, and they're sitting in the dirt as we speak. Okay,
so with your drag, then, how do you set up your drag?
Wolf traps. I run a fairly big chain. I got a J.C. Connor shock spring in it. Lots of swivels. I'm a swivel guy. I like to give them that ability to maneuver in that. I'm running 10 good feet to good heavy chain, and then I'm running Armageddon drags, so O'Gorman drags there.
Okay.
And they lock up, and they ain't nothing pulling them out.
No, they're a good hook. And
Yep.
Yeah.
I've probably like the 100-pound wolf I took last year, he was in a coyote-sized drag. He did get it about 300 yards, and that's the furthest anything has ever drugged.
So why do you prefer the drag over a ground stake?
Stakes, I like drags to the point that you make a set or you find that spot, that X. It's not disturbed. You know, the animal comes in, gets caught, he's gone, he's humping her, 30 yards, he hangs up. You go dispatch him, bring your trap back, set it in the original spot.
Yeah,
you're rolling again.
Your catch circle is away from where you're actually hooked up on them.
And wolves too, like, if you find that spot, and it takes a lot of work to find them X's I call, like where they'll come back to, where you're going to catch 3 or 4 or 5 wolves in that 6-8 inch circle. You don't want it all disturbed, So you get your original catch, he's going to take off, hang up, dispatch, and put your trap back in there. Now you got a catch circle, you can trap that too, so it creates more options too. Eh?
Yeah, I believe, especially with, and it's funny, a lot of people don't understand it, but cats and canines are very similar, and that when there's more disturbance, it's more attractive. It's more active because it's more active.
Yep.
Yeah.
What did someone go in there and bury? Let's go check it out. Eh?
Oh,
yeah. It's curiosity
definitely.
killed the cat. Eh?
Yeah,
and the dog. Yeah.
So, let's go somewhere else then with this. You love handling fur. You do a lot. You do a lot of custom skinning, don't you?
I do. Yeah. I can say I handled or sharpened a few knives, wore a few out. Yeah, yeah. Hands are getting tired. Yeah, but I still love it. It's I guess some people can sit and play a guitar or you read a book or whatever. This is what it relaxes me. I go out and I can skin for 3-4 hours and look at the clock and where the heck did the time go, eh?
It's trapper meditation is what it is.
I guess
it's
so.
trapper yoga. Yeah.
I guess so, yeah.
I'm in a different level than you because in 3-4 hours I'll get 1 or 2 pieces done and I'll come back in. Now, in Alberta, we have a rendezvous, and that's a big trappers convention, and every year there's a competition. It's Ultimate
Every
Trappers.
year there's
Ultimate Trappers competition, and part of it there's, I don't know, 5-6 different stages to it. You got to start a fire and boil coffee. There's a beaver skinning, a speed competition, and there's a coyote speed competition. Yeah. Now you have won the coyote. I know you won it this year. How many other years have you won that?
Two more times to set records.
And how many times have you been the ultimate trapper?
Twice. Yeah,
twice.
I've took it 2 years. Yeah.
This year, I have no way of knowing, because as much research as we've done, and we were to the national convention in Michigan and everything
where they
else,
don't have such a thing.
Yeah, they don't do things like speed competitions when it comes to skinning. But you had to have set the world record for skinning a coyote this year.
Well, I don't know about a world record, but I pumped some fur out.
Here's the best part, is that one guy, and if you're in coyotes and snaring at all, you'll know the name Marty Seneker. Marty Seneker did a coyote in 2 minutes flat. Marty came in second.
Yeah.
You did it in 1:51.
Yeah, I guess so.
Tell me, how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you take the fur off of a coyote? They're hanging there, right?
Yeah.
And they're like a 24, 28-pound coyote.
Yeah, we try in this competition because a male coyote's going to pull way harder than an average size coyote. So, we try select good quality fur, no big holes, no funny stuff that's going to hang you up while you're skinning it. So there are pretty well, you could say, cloned coyotes. Some are bigger, some are smaller. I guess it's luck of the draw. So yeah, we throw our names in a hat, pick our number, and go grab a coyote that's laying on the ground and hope he's the one. So.
Do you have any criteria when you're picking that coyote?
No, not really.
You don't get a lot of choice or chance to really be choosy, right?
I'm to the point where you just, here's the one, let's go. Let's see if we can make it happen. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So to start the competition, we hang them. We were starting them on the floor. So my original set record was 2 minutes, 26 seconds starting on the floor. So that's me not touching the coyote. I had to actually pick it up, hang it from the Gramble and pick up my knife and start going. So
Right.
at 227 on that one. Next one was and then the following year was 226. So I ended up grabbing the record on that one, and the same thing, I had to hang it. So there's 10, 12 seconds to hang a coyote to get
Easy.
it rolling.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah, and then this year just had a good run. Yeah, picked a good coyote and
All the stars aligned.
I guess so. Yeah. One thing everybody asks, what are you thinking when you're doing this? And well, number one, don't cut your fingers off, and I have. Yeah, I've lobbed a finger, part of it off in a beaver skin competition, and yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, I do remember that
Yeah.
at the end of the one. That was 2 years ago.
I was in Pincher Creek. Yeah.
Yeah, and then everybody was running around, and Sandi your wife was trying to find somebody to put your finger back on.
Yeah, and I ended that was day number one beaver skin, and day number two was the coyote, and I still set a record. So I guess maybe that was my luck. I woke me up, pay attention, eh?
So, is there an actual practice you go through for this, or is it just you've done so many, it's just muscle memory, and away you go?
When you've skinned, I've lost. Everybody asks, how many coyotes have you skinned? I said I lost track after 10 because that's how many fingers I can count on, eh?
Well, 9 after the beaver skin.
I guess, yeah. I have to use a toe then. But, I skin it just like I do in my shop when I'm putting up fur. When you do a couple hundred a year, you get a system, and it's just like you watch the guys that professionally skin mink. They can, seconds they're done. It's crazy. Coyotes the same. I have on video. I don't produce it or put it out too much, but I have it to prove it. I've skinned coyotes in a minute and 27 seconds flat.
Really?
Yeah. In my shop. Yeah.
It's funny because at one point I did a bunch of video work for NAFA, I believe it was, when they're producing their beaver DVD, and I filmed Jackie Wirt skinning beaver, and it wasn't until I was editing it together afterwards, and I looked at it as I could take the left side of beaver number one, and I could, at any point I want to, intermix it with the left side of beaver number 2 and beaver number 4. It was the same amount of strokes. It was the same motion, everything, every time. And then it would be flip the animal around and do it again. And I was just amazed at how much it was to me. It was just muscle memory. He's done thousands upon thousands, and it's just the same number of strokes, the same weight on the knife, everything, right?
Yeah, coyotes are the same. Like I have my cuts. There's little tricks that I know where to push and pull to get it to go good, and it's smooth as fast. That's another thing. When you're smooth and you roll, and all of a sudden you just bang, 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 bang your cuts, and you're grabbing the right spots at the right time, and it comes off. It pulls.
Well, that's the fascinating part that I find so cool when I watch you. You don't look fast.
Yeah.
You don't look fast. Like some people, they look like they're under the gun, like they're panicking. They're flat out trying so hard. You don't. You're just, like you say, you're smooth, and away it goes. It just flies, right?
Yeah.
One of the great things that's happened out of all this, though, like we've filmed those particular competitions and some of the other really fun things like the snowshoe race and whatnot.
Yep.
But as those shows have started to air in the U.S. and we've gotten a bigger U.S. audience, when we go down to the National Trapping Convention, they are really fascinated with the stuff that we do. Well, first of all, I think they think it's really kind of interesting what we find to be
humorous
or
enjoyable to watch.
Enjoyment.
Yeah.
But at those big national conventions, they don't have anything like that. But they know.
Yeah.
They know about it. They know your name too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And it's just not something that you can get to have happen down there, I don't think. It seems foreign to them, and yet they're so fascinated by it because everybody's fascinated by a race, by competition, and that. I guess just the fact that there's so many. I mean, part of it is there's not many people that handle as many coyotes as you do in a year, or a lot of the guys up here. There's some that handle a lot more coyotes.
Yep.
But you have to have the talent, and you have to have the practice, and
Well, not everybody that catches a lot of coyotes does their own skinning either.
No, that's true.
Right.
That's very true. I know a lot of guys that catch 300-400 coyotes and don't touch a single one.
Yeah.
They pay people to do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, some of them probably pay you to do it.
Yeah, well, for sure. No, and it's. I look at it too as a lot like guys. There's guys that have knacks to things. You know, you can pick. Some guy will pick up a guitar for the first time, and within 15 minutes he's strumming and he's got his fingers figured out. You know, and next guy can pick up a goose call. You know, 3 good blows and he's got the reed figured out and he's rolling on it. Next guy, 3 days later, he still sounds like a drowning duck. Eh? So, yeah.
You've heard me with a guitar, haven't you? In 15 minutes, I can figure out how to start a fire with it.
Yeah. But I guess that's what you're interested in. I don't know what it is that the bug that bit me that I like. I like handling fur, and there's nothing more appealing to me than seeing a well-handled piece of fur.
Oh, no question. No question. So, what do you see? You know, we're running into more issues with PETA, with antis, that kind of thing. Do you think they're as big a deal as what people complain about on social media and that, or do you think there's a lot of the boy that cried wolf going on?
Well, I've had a few run-ins with antis and stuff. I don't let it get to me. This is my profession. This is what I love to do, and I don't go beat on their door. So but I want to say we're gaining ground. I think with education is a big thing. No matter how much money you have, you're not going to change somebody's minds that are just dead set against it. So the only way to change their mind is through education.
That's the truth, and we run into those situations where you have an anti and they want to fight. That's all they want to do. Yeah. You're never going to change their mind, so why fight with them?
Exactly.
All I end up doing in those situations is I just delete them.
Yeah.
I just delete them.
Well, no voice.
Don't give them a voice. Why give them a voice on my platforms? And I try to counsel other folks in the industry to do the same. Yeah. I said the people that you really want to reach aren't ever going to talk to you, and that's the 80%.
Yep.
10% trap, 10% hate it. It's the 80% that don't. That which we find that about 80% of our fans don't trap, but they're fascinated with the life.
Yep.
I'm
pretty fortunate too. I enjoy teaching, trapping education and stuff. So I love going to schools, taking stuff to the kids and showing them and showing what, we're not cold-blooded killers. We're out there for a reason. We're out there managing animals. If we ain't out there helping, doing our part of it, well, disease sets in, overnumbers set in. Now we have nothing. We have some serious problems going on. So I like to be a steward to the land. I love being in the bush. I love looking after animals. People ask me, like, how can you, kill an animal? Well, yeah, I don't get just an honest thrill out of killing an animal alive in a trap, but it's part of my job. I do it. It's just like a plumber when he comes to a house with the toilet plugged. It's part of his job, so.
And for me, you just have to understand that we are dealing in a surplus. These animals are going to die. Nature's going to kill them.
Yep.
So we're just trying to utilize that surplus. And the more people that understand that, the better off it is. There are a lot of people who post stuff on the internet that don't help us.
No.
People need to have a filter, and I don't understand. But, it doesn't matter whether it's hunting or fishing or drunk driving or whatever. People will post any bloody thing on the internet. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that people have to be counseled on having a filter and don't. But I find that, we've had people. I had actually, we had quite a thing come up here when we were doing game studies this year in Alberta. They were flying different WMUs. Every couple of years they'll fly a wildlife management unit. They'll fly and count moose, okay? Yep. One wildlife management unit butts against the one side of my son's trapline in central Alberta. And they flew it, and they came up with like 400 and some moose, 426 or something like that.
They extrapolate that.
Yeah,
number,
well,
right?
they actually have a number, and the number was 118, and they multiply that by 4, and that gives them just through this whole algorithm they have, that gives them the actual number of moose in the wildlife management unit. in the same time, they actually counted the number of feral horses and came up with over 650. That wasn't extrapolated or anything. That was an actual count while they were counting moose. Well, wild horses, feral horses, because there are no wild horses in North America, not for 18,000 years.
Yep.
These are all somebody else's garbage that's been turned loose.
Yep.
And they've become a huge problem, because they outcompete. A herd of horses outcompetes a single moose or whatever very easily. Yep. And so I had somebody contact me, and they said, well, why wouldn't people catch them and tame them? And I said, well, that has, in the past, that was done, and they caught them, but most often they were shipped off to the packing plant, and they're not of any quality whatsoever. And
that offends people, too.
Yeah, yeah. And the fact that they're only good for dog meat, usually is what they go for is dog food.
Yep.
Very seldom do they even go for human consumption, just because they're poor quality, right? And so after I got done talking with them and explaining to them, the numbers and how they outcompete and all that, well, this person had changed their mind completely. But this was somebody who didn't trap. They started out by saying they didn't trap, but they contacted us because
a great big long email this summer, actually.
Yeah. So it was fascinating where that went. That was to me, that was good. That was one of those victories.
Yep.
Where here was somebody that was against killing feral horses and killing wolves and was turned around. Because they thought it was kind of bad that, we were celebrating that the horses were now getting ate by the wolves, because every pile of crap we found in that was just full of hair. Horsehair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was the first time in all the years that he's trapped there, because it's always been moose or mostly moose. Very, very, not very often deer or elk, because neither one of them are really a big enough meal for a pack of wolves. But horses are a big meal.
Oh yeah, they love horse meat. Yeah. One thing I always like when I get to go to schools and teach kids, I look at, there's going to be some against it for sure. That 80% is what I'm after.
Yep.
I'm trying to get this in, especially younger kids in the smaller grades. I don't handle fur in front of them to the point of, bringing, say, a dead coyote or whatever. But so my first thing is I bring in all my fur bags of all my goodies, tan fur and dried fur and whatnot. And I get talking to them, tell them who I am, introduce myself and what I am and what I do. But I always have a piece of roll of toilet paper with me, and I always hold it up. And I said, who uses this every day? Everybody, kids, they giggle and laugh. Well, yeah, we do. And I said, well, I hope you do. Good, but where does this come from? And you get finally some kid will say it comes from the bush, the trees. Yeah, well, we're cutting these trees down to, use this type of stuff, build our houses, produce paper so you guys can come to school and write and learn and stuff. But what lives in the bush? Finally some will say animals. Well, yeah. So when we're cutting their whole houses down, where do they go live? They have nowhere to live. So now we have a surplus of animals going into another animal's home. So if trappers, people that stewards of the land, ain't there to help out in our part that humans have created, what do we have? We're going to have massive diseases, overrun with animals, and we are seeing it. So we need to inform, and that's what I like to do, is take it to younger kids so that they're open to it at a younger age. When they're 20, 30 years old, it's pretty hard to drive something home to them, eh?
Yeah. And that's a great point. One thing that people point out, they talk about how mankind upset the balance of nature. Well, man's been part of the balance of nature for hundreds of thousands of years that man's been on the face of the earth. Our population has encroached more and more on nature, no question. But we've been part of the balance. And I really like that you go see the kids, because kids are, I always like to say this, is that kids and puppy dogs are nothing, you don't make them.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And so the sooner you can introduce them to those ideas, you go to a lot to schools.
Yeah, I try to, and I've been invited to them. I started the younger ages, and I show them, tan furs as we're sitting on right now. And they just, they can't get enough of it. They just love it. You ask, I always get a kick out of it too, because in our area, wolverines, grew up in the bush, lived in the bush. I've yet to even catch a wolverine. My grandpa's caught a couple, so they're sort of rare. So I always say, who's seen this? Who's seen a moose? Who's seen a deer? And everybody's got their hands up. And so I say, who's seen a wolverine? Well, there's always one kid. He's got his hand up. And, well, that's good. What did he look like? Well, he's about the size of a grizzly bear. So I start him out. The younger classes like that, just showing them fur and stuff. And then when I'm into junior high kids, I've handled fur with them. Like we're skinning beavers with them in school and stuff. And
kids aren't shocked by that. There's so many adults that are shocked by the fact that, oh my God, there's blood there.
Yeah.
Like it was really funny when we got onto Amazon Prime. One of the very first shows, and they approve every show. One of the shows, she's skinning a muskrat. Well, they wanted me to, and our program is unrated. Like we don't have any age ratings or whatever. So I just put, the lowest they had was, open for everybody. Well, that was no good. And so I went 13 plus, and then they said, but you're showing blood and skinning. And I says, good Lord, lady, you do know that, you have porn running on this channel. Yeah. But this was horrifying that, she was skinning a muskrat. So I had to go to a 16 plus or 18 plus rating for Trapping Inc.
Well, and it's, even in the schools and stuff, I'll say, I've skinned some muskrats or whatever in front of kids, and I always give them the option. You don't have to be here if you don't want to be here. Every kid's just eyeballs glued onto it, and they ain't blinking, eh? They just eating it up. When you've never seen anything like that, it's curiosity too. But if it's brought into the right ways, I think our future with teaching kids, I wish it was part of school curriculum that they learn. We learn the fur trade, but I think it would be awesome to see them and take them out and show them what we do and why we do it.
Part of that also reflects on how scary schools are, because those kids are nothing other. They cue more off of how the adults around them are reacting than their own reaction.
Yeah.
And when they watch you do that skinning, it's not objectionable to them.
Yep.
But if somebody was there going, ooh, if their mother was there, it might be a different. They might have a different take on it altogether, right?
Why their mother?
Oh, their father.
This day and age, you never know. Yeah.
You can't tell one from the other.
Yeah.
That's good though. That's good that you have such a good reaction to it. Yeah. I know your own kids you've done so much with.
Yeah.
And that's so important. I mean, for one thing, they're free labor. I noticed that. I noticed that on your travel line. I mean, they piled off the snowmobiles and they were out there just moving. I was like, wow. Yeah. I said, boy, some kids that aren't scared to work, and the little. She was so small then. She was just this little tiny bunny in a pink suit. She'd her job was to pack the Marten away from the trap and put him in the box. She chased her brothers with it. That was hilarious.
Yeah, she's my little my helper for sure. I take any kid with me. I don't I'm not just my kids, but I guess I look at it. When I was 14, I was pretty fortunate. My dad lent me his 3-wheeler Honda Big Red. My grandpa lent me a dozen beaver traps. In the spring, he was to the age where his body was sort of slowing up. So anyways, I got to go to set some traps. I set 12 traps. That spring, before and after school, I caught 65 beaver by myself.
Wow. I
put them all up myself. I sold them on a $35 average. I'm 13 years old. There's $2,300 in my pocket.
I know.
And I worked for it. Like that. I guess maybe that's what I look for now too. Is I'm trying to teach my kids to be, your hands got to make you your money. Pay attention to that. When you have a knack for something or the ability to use your hands, you're gonna hopefully, go far in life, eh?
Well, you're not afraid to get your hands dirty. One thing, if your hands are making your money, you're not afraid to get them dirty. Yeah. And I can still hear the satisfaction in your voice of what those beaver were worth.
Oh, yeah.
As a kid at that age, I mean, the incredible amount of confidence it gave you to tackle anything. You know.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. I could have went and hung out with my buddies or whatever, but I went home after school and skinned beaver till dark. Come home and went to bed, got up, went checked my traps, So
how were you trapping back then? Like what was your set back then?
Oh, just on a run set, caster mound, just on
330?
Yep, 330.
Yeah.
Old Victor 330s that Grandpa had, and so yeah, that's what I caught. My best day was I took 9 beaver in one day and 12 traps. So
Oh my God!
yeah,
Yeah.
13 years old. I was pretty big-eyed and a lot of teeth showing on my way home. Eh?
And that old Big Red was loaded.
Oh, he was. There was a double trip. Yeah, yeah. And then trapping with Grandpa too, I guess. And he I learned fur handling and whatnot when I was fairly young. So he, I wouldn't say he was a great fur handler. He was more about the quantity, not quality.
Yeah.
So like he produced a lot of fur over the years. So anyways, Grandma was a good fur handler. She taught me too, as I said before. So Grandpa, he still wanted to go trap, and I was getting up into my senior years of high school and playing basketball and girls and whatnot, keeping busy. Anyways, so he said if you put the fur up for me, I'll trap. If you put the fur up, we'll split it, the profit. I said, yeah, why not? So anyways, I had to slow him down at 1,200 squirrels. So he was in his glory because he didn't have to even worry about putting his fur up. So I ended up skinning 1,200 squirrels one winter for him.
Grandpa still had a few steps going.
Well, yeah, he was tough. Yeah, he didn't slow down. And when he knew he didn't have to deal with the headache at the end of the day, he was full tilt. Eh? So,
Yeah.
Do what you love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's always been an enjoyment to me. So.
I'll tell you what, it's easy to see. I mean, how much it helped mold you, and how much it's molded your family and your children together. We're in a much more urban environment. You guys are out here in northern Alberta on the farm, and that. So maybe it's not so unique for you, but we see where the future is, and we wish there were more families like yours.
Yeah. Well, thank you. No, and I do ADC work. I do a pretty big project with some wolves here the last few years, and it's hard work. I'm digging holes. It's long days. I work. Yeah, this is supposed to be a hobby type of thing. Anyways, it's my second job. So, I'm up early in the morning to farm.
Yeah.
I farm till supper time, and I go trapping. And lots of times I ain't home till 1 in the morning, and back up at 7, 8 in the morning on the farm to go at it. So
Well, that's a part of not worrying about getting your hands dirty. How many acres do you farm?
with my brother and my dad, dad's getting out of it. It was 6,500 acres of grain farming. So
that isn't done with a snap of the fingers.
No, not most days. No, some long days. And of course, when busy season is on the farm, it's busy season and getting ready for trapping as doing ADC work. So
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm pretty fortunate. I take my kids. Harley was with me yesterday. We were setting wolf traps. We dug in 12 sets, fresh new sets, scouted, and she's packing dirt with me, and she's luring the sets with me. She's 9, 10 years old, and she's getting right
Good
in
for
there.
her.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yep. So.
I still remember her with the wool sock, fleshing a weasel.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't force kids or nothing, but if I go out after supper, 10 out of 10 times she's out there with me. Yeah, skinning, combing coyotes, whatever it takes. I guess maybe she'd been bit by the bug too, eh? So
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's always our dream, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
As much as we don't want to, influence our children too much, want them to be their own people and all that. It's always cool when they like to do what you like to do.
Oh yeah, and if they want to go in ride their bikes, whatever, do it. I'm fine with it,
Yeah.
But if they're willing to come and look and learn, I'll show you. Yep. Yeah. It's free labor, eh?
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, it has been a wonderful time sitting here talking with you. I got to come back and get on the trap line with you again.
For sure.
That
Yeah.
was a great show.
Bring your chainsaw here.
Yeah.
No,
bring
no. I'm gonna bring a limp. A limp and a bad back.
Yeah, bring some saw fuel and a saw. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, I'd love to have you. I enjoy taking people, for sure.
And I sure appreciate you taking time in the fall here, which is your busy time, to do the podcast with us.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me on it.
Well, thank you.
You bet. Thanks,
Thanks
Andy.
a lot.
You bet.
All right. I hope we kept you guys interested. And as I said at the start of the show, be sure to check out everything at www.trappinginc.com. Thank you.